Hello and welcome to a new video where I'm going to be giving you guys my 2025 NFL predictions. If there's anything you disagree with throughout the video, make sure to let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and hop straight into these predictions. We're going to be doing our division predictions, AFC and NFC Championship games, a Super Bowl game, obviously. We'll hop into the award winners and maybe a couple dark horses or hot takes I have for the season. Now, the first division we're going to be hopping into is, in my opinion, unarguably the best division in football, which is going to be the NFC North. 3 teams last season out of the NFC North made the playoffs, and then the Bears casually just go out and sign Ben Johnson and have another great free agency, and then the Packers somehow acquired Micah Parsons. So I don't know why the NFC North is on crack. We know the Vikings had a great free agency. The Lions went 15-2 last year. This division is insanely stacked, and if you don't think it's the best division in the league, you can argue with a wall. Now, even with all the changes that happened to the division this year, I do still think the Lions will find the way to win the division. Now, they did lose both of their coordinators in the offseason, which I think at the beginning of the season might ruffle the feathers a little bit, get them off to a little bit of a slower start. But I don't think we're going to have multiple teams out of this division winning 14 plus games again anyways. So I think if the Lions could find a way to get 12-13 wins, they could secure that first seed. And even without their coordinators, they still got Dan Campbell. They still have all the weapons on offense, and they'll be getting Aiden Hutchinson back as well. So I'm still excited to see what this Lions team is going to do, and I don't think they're going to slow down too much just from losing their coordinators. Second in the division, I do have the Green Bay Packers. I've loved watching Jordan Love's development. I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league, and the pick of Matthew Golden in the first round is one of the most exciting picks to me. First time drafting a skill position in the first round in almost 20 years, I believe it was for them. And I do think Matthew Golden by the end of the year will break out and become the Packers wide receiver 1, and I think he's going to have an outstanding year. Their offense is great. They can run the ball with Josh Jacobs, and let's not forget that they just recently went out and traded for Micah Parsons, and the Packers defense was pretty decent last year. I am slightly worried about their secondary, but the secondary's job becomes a lot easier when you're going to be getting 100 plus extra pressures out of Micah Parsons this season. So I'm very confident the Packers will be in the playoffs this year. I do think they could even fight to win this division, but with the last 2 years that the Lions have had, it's really hard for me to say that the Packers can beat them in the division. Third in the division, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I do think the Minnesota Vikings will find themselves a wild card spot as well. I do once again think we'll see 3 teams out of the North making the playoffs. This has got to be one of the most interesting teams this season. I am a Vikings fan, if you can't tell. I believe JJ McCarthy is being put in the best position we've arguably ever seen a practical rookie quarterback go into. I know he's not a rookie, but he hasn't played a single NFL game yet. He has unlimited weapons on offense. We just recently acquired Adam Thielen, brought him back to Minnesota. We have a great offensive line. The interior was a little iffy last year. We went ahead and got Will Fries and Ryan Kelly and drafted another guard and Donovan Jackson in the first round. And defensively, Brian Flores, the way he schemed the defense last year was insane. And again, on the defensive side of the ball, our problem was the interior defensive line. We go out, we get Hargrave, we get Jonathan Allen. I am slightly worried about our secondary, but I think with the schemes that Brian Flores is able to draw up, I do think this defense will be good once again. And at the end of the day, this season is all going to come down to JJ McCarthy. I hope he can handle the pressure, and I do think he can, because if Kevin O'Connell can help Sam Darnold lead the Vikings to a 14-3 record, can make Josh Dobbs play some pretty decent football, I do think he will be the perfect guy to develop JJ McCarthy into the quarterback that all Vikings fans want him to be. And also, I think us acquiring Jordan Mason in the offseason was one of the more underrated offseason moves. Aaron Jones is aging, and we didn't really have anybody to take a little bit of weight off his shoulders last year, and I think Jordan Mason is just the guy for that. He stepped up big time for San Fran when Christian McCaffrey was out, and I'd love to see them splitting snaps and both going crazy in the run game. Which leaves last place in the division. I do have the Chicago Bears. Now, this division is going to be insanely competitive. I don't think the Bears are going to suck or anything this year. I think Ben Johnson was the perfect head coach for Caleb Williams, but I do still think there's going to be some growing pains. It's going to take a while for them to catch their stride. I do think this offense could be scary by the end of the year. I'm not a big fan of Chicago's defense. I think that's one thing that's kind of holding me back, and I do need to see Caleb take another step into developing, because he didn't impress me that much as a rookie. But I do think that will change with Ben Johnson, because Matt Eberflus was arguably like the worst head coach in the league last year. So I don't want to take too much away from Caleb. I think the Bears have a lot of upside. I do think there is a world where they finish higher in this division and even find a playoff spot, but I just think it's too early to jump ship and have that much faith in this team. I do think in the next couple years, the Bears will start becoming a more scary team in the NFC North. Next, we're going to move on to the NFC East. In first place in the NFC East, I do have the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. This roster is just insanely stacked. I think you could make an argument that they have one of the best receiver duos in the league. You can make an argument about having the best offensive line in the league. They basically do have the best running back in the league. He was Offensive Player of the Year last year. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, is a top 5 quarterback in the league. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but he shows up when he needs to. And yeah, his system that he's in happens to be insanely good, but he fits it perfectly. And he does what he needs to do to get the job done. And the defensive side of the ball is great. I love their young corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They still have Jalen Carter on the defensive line. I believe Nolan Smith will have a pretty good breakout year this season. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And there's no doubt in my mind that this Philly team is going to win 13 plus games, assuming everybody stays healthy. Second place, I actually do have the Commanders finishing second again in this division. Now, I don't know if we'll see a big jump from Jaden Daniels next year. It is really hard to improve from how great he played last season. I don't really know how I feel about the acquisition of Deebo Samuel. Now, if we could see the Deebo Samuel that we saw a couple years ago in San Fran that was torching the Eagles, he was efficient running the ball and as a receiver, I think this could be a great pickup for the team, especially after they lost Brian Robinson and they don't really have a steady running game outside of their quarterback. If Deebo Samuel can find a way into the backfield and efficiently run the ball like he used to in San Francisco, I think he could actually be a scary weapon for the Commanders. They locked down Terry McLaurin. Their defense is a little bit sketchy. I don't really know how I feel about the Von Miller signing. I mean, Von Miller's a good role defensive end, but he's out of his prime, obviously. And everybody else is just kind of ready for the retirement home. So I do have a fear that the Commanders slow down a little bit this year and maybe go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. But because of the talent that Jaden Daniels is, I do still have them making a wild card spot this season. Third place for the division was honestly a toss-up for me between Dallas and New York. I do think third place is still going to go to the Cowboys. I think this defense is going to struggle a lot this year, but I do have faith in the Cowboys offense, even though they're not really going to be able to establish a run game. I think Dak has proven that he is capable of putting up good stats, especially against teams that they should beat. Now, they'll probably lose to Philly. They could even lose to them twice, and they are going to choke some games against good teams. But when they get the chance to get these teams that they're supposed to beat, Dak's going to put up numbers. He has another receiver in George Pickens. So I think the Cowboys offense will be able to officially move the ball enough to at least get 7 or 8 wins this year. But I just don't have any faith in the Cowboys defense whatsoever. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I don't know. Dallas has just been in a weird situation recently. It's hard to predict what this team's going to do. And then in last place, I do have the Giants. I am actually very excited to watch the Giants this year. This is a very interesting team to me. I think we see a situation where Russ comes in as the starter and gets 1 win throughout 5 games or something. Russ, at this point in his career, probably has the best deep ball in the league, but it's the only thing he has. He doesn't throw it over the middle of the field. He's not mobile anymore. I mean, he's not mobile, but you get what I'm saying. And only having a deep ball isn't going to be enough. I think Brian Daboll starts to panic. We get to see Jackson Dart, and he's not going to get to fully develop for this entire year. And I think Jackson Dart will play decent, but he is still a rookie at the end of the day. It's not going to be enough to bounce back from their 1-4, 1-5 record that I imagine them having with Russell Wilson. I am excited for this defense, though. I like the secondary. I like the changes they made in the offseason. And the draft pick of Abdul Carter, I think he is easily the best defensive player to come out of the draft. So I'm excited for the Giants season. I've never been a big Daboll guy, though. I do think this is probably going to be his last year with the Giants, and Jackson Dart's unfortunately have to learn with a new head coach next year, but I hope they prove me wrong. Next division, we're going to go to the NFC South, probably the worst division in the NFC. I do have the Bucs winning it this year. I think the Bucs will actually kind of finally win this division comfortably. I feel like the last few seasons we've watched them kind of fight for who can go 9-8, who can go 10-7 and barely win this division. I think this year they're going to take a step ahead, maybe win 11 or 12 games and win the division by 2 or 3 games. I think Baker is easily going to be an MVP candidate this year. The Bucs defense does scare me. I am excited to see if Hassan Reddick can kind of have a bounce back season here in Tampa, and if he could go back to performing the way he used to in Philly, I think their defense could take a huge step up because their secondary isn't great, but their secondary's job is so hard because they have no pass rush and can't get to the quarterback. I don't know how your head coach is this big defensive-minded guy, yet Baker's having to put up 30 points a game to compete. I wasn't a big fan of the first-round draft pick of Egbuka. Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe it's smarter not to reach on a defensive guy, but with the way their defense struggled last year and they're in a window to win right now, I think you're prepared to win right now, especially when you already have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I know you wanted to add another younger guy to the rotation, but I'm just not a fan. But I am excited to see Bucky Irving have a full entire year as the RB1. I think he's going to put up great numbers this year, so hopefully that'll take a big weight off of Baker's shoulders, and I think you won't want to play the Buccaneers Buccaneers this year, basically, but I think their games will be entertaining and high scoring, and they'll be kind of similar to how the Bengals were last season. Second place in the division, I'm going to go with the Falcons. I'm excited to watch Michael Penix. I do think their offense is going to be very exciting to watch this year. I think Bijan's going to be insane. I think Drake London continues to put up consistent numbers. It's just this defense scares me so bad. They've struggled with pass rush consistently over the last few years, and they did go out and draft 2 first-round pass rushers this year in the draft. That doesn't really add another level of confidence that your pass rush is going to be successful. So I do think they're honestly going to be pretty similar to the Buccaneers in my opinion. I think we're going to have a very entertaining offense to watch this year. I'm excited to see if Michael Penix can take the next step into his career, but I just don't think this defense is going to be able to stop these high-powered offenses from putting up 30-plus points pretty easily. Moving on, I have the Panthers. I feel like everybody that's an NFL fan right now has insane confidence that Bryce Young is going to have this breakout season. And I feel like we do this a lot when players we like that are drafted early don't necessarily instantly find it. And I'm all for it. I do think we should take time to develop players, but I think just because one player struggled and then had a couple good games at the end of last season, that doesn't mean he's guaranteed to break out whatsoever. And there's still not many weapons on the Panthers roster. I do really like Ted McMillan. That was a great draft pick. But then outside of him and Xavier Legette, like the wide receiver room is thin. They cut Hunter Renfrow, who I was actually very excited to watch. They traded Adam Thielen. Chuba Hubbard's a dog, but how much is he going to do for the offense? And then defensively, you have Derek Brown. J.C. Horn just got paid, but I don't know. There's nothing about this team that convinces me that they are capable of getting more than like 7 wins. The idea of Bryce Young taking the next step and developing and Ted McMillan coming out and balling does excite me, and I would love to see that for Bryce Young. I do really like him as a player, but I just am not on this hype train that Bryce Young is going to have this crazy breakout year, take the Panthers to 8 or 9 wins. I just don't see it happening. Realistically, I think the Panthers' ceiling is probably 8 wins, but I do see a world where they get 5 wins again. And then in last place, I have the New Orleans Saints. This isn't going to be a shock to anybody. They probably have the worst starting quarterback going out this year. I like Rattler, but if we're comparing to every starter in the league, he's probably the worst one. And all the good players they do have on their roster, outside of a few names like Chris Olave and people like that, everybody's old. Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara. They just lost Tyrann Mathieu to retirement. I genuinely don't see a single world where this team succeeds. There's really not much to dive into. I think they probably end up with the #1 overall pick next year. And hey, good for them. Maybe they can go out and get a new quarterback, but this team's going to not be very good. And moving on to the last division in the NFC, we have the NFC West. I do have the Rams winning it this year. I know there's been concerns about Matt Stafford's back and everything he's going through, but in my head, honestly, if there's any quarterback who's going to play through these back pains and be able to make it work, it probably is Matt Stafford. Especially with the addition of Davante Adams. They basically have 2 wide receiver ones right now. Kyron Williams has been great the last couple years. They added Blake Corum as well. And then their draft last year defensively was insane. Braden Fisk and Jared Verse were great. The secondary is a little bit weak. It could definitely use some work, but the Rams are a team that are going to put up points. And I'm insanely excited to watch how their offense is going to be this year, because Puka broke out and took the wide receiver 1 spot, and then they go out and add somebody like Davante Adams. So I don't know who Stafford's going to be looking at, but if Stafford is playing to his full potential, they are easily going to win this division. And if he's not, that's when the question mark comes in. With that being said, in second place, I do have San Francisco. I do think the 49ers missed the playoffs again. The 49ers are a very interesting team because since Shanahan has got there, it's basically they either miss the playoffs or they go to the NFC Championship or make the Super Bowl. And I would expect them to have a bounce back year, but just with the struggles they're having with injuries, with the talents they lost through free agency, like Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, it's hard for me to say that this team is going to go above 500 and easily make the playoffs. Brandon Ayuk is still dealing with an injury, and they just seem to struggle with injuries year in, year out. If Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, he's definitely going to be a big asset to the team. But I think Brock Purdy kind of proved last season that if he doesn't have the stacked roster around him that we were used to seeing, I don't think he's going to be capable of putting up the numbers that he was before. I think Brock Purdy's a great quarterback, but he definitely is a system quarterback, and I'm not even saying that to take away from him. That's just what his strength is being a system quarterback, and the system just happened to be weaker right now. So I think they're going to struggle this year. I think they probably get 8 wins, but I don't think we see them in the playoffs this year. I think next year, and after that, we'll start seeing the 49ers becoming this powerhouse of a team again. In third place, I have Seattle. My hopes for Seattle are not very high this year. I think JSN puts up great numbers. I do like their defense. I like the DeMarcus Lawrence signing. I do like a lot of their free agency signings. It's just Sam Darnold. Now, I do have a soft spot in my heart for Sam Darnold. He came into Minnesota, got us 14 wins. But the games that we lost and the games that we almost lost, there was really no one else to blame other than Sam Darnold. We had a really bad game against the Jags, which we barely won. We had a really bad game against Indy, which we barely won. And then we lost to the Rams twice and lost to the Lions twice. The first Lions loss, I'm willing to get out of my head, but that week 18 with the 1 seed on the line, Sam Darnold did not show up. And then we fast forward to the wild card round against the Rams, where he once again did not show up when the lights were the brightest. And honestly, Sam Darnold just struggles under pressure, and the Seahawks offensive line, especially on the interior, just isn't great. It doesn't impress me all that much. I think Sam Darnold's going to struggle while being under more pressure than he was last year in Minnesota, because when our interior offensive line was struggling, Sam Darnold was struggling, and now he's kind of transferring over to Seattle, and I think it's going to be the same problem, except now he doesn't have Kevin O'Connell, arguably the best quarterback coach in the NFL, telling him what to do. So I think Seattle's defense is great. I think Sam Darnold will be okay. I think they probably get about 7 wins, but I don't really see what they're going to get out of Sam Darnold that they couldn't get out of Geno Smith. And then in last place, I have the Cardinals. I love Kyler Murray. I'm an OU fan when it comes to college. I love him, but I just don't think that he's proven that he can compete as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, they drafted Marvin Harrison 4th overall last year, and we saw how he kind of struggled his rookie year. Is that bad chemistry between him and Kyler? Is that Kyler not spreading the ball around well enough? Is it a coaching issue? I will say I'm not the biggest fan of Jonathan Gannon, but the Cardinals year in and year out just disappoint. Whether they're supposed to be good, and even if they make the playoffs, they'll start off hot and then go on a losing streak to finish the year and lose in the wild card round, or they're just mediocre all season and they just can't do enough in games that they should be winning, to try to get into the playoffs. I think Kyler, he puts up a lot of highlight reel plays, and when he does, it's some of the most entertaining football ever, but him having that capability of making these highlight plays kind of takes away from him, because he goes for the highlight play, I feel like, too often sometimes. I remember watching them play Minnesota last year. We were playing like shit and they should have beat us. Kyler rolls out of the pocket, throws it 40 yards down the field directly to a DB's hands. So it's just plays like that. I've lost a lot of faith in Kyler. I would personally love to see him go to another team and prove me wrong, because I just don't think it's going to work out for him in Arizona. I don't see any possibility of that ever being the case. Now, moving on to the AFC, we're going to start off with the AFC North, probably the best division in the AFC, I would say. The AFC West might give them a run for their money, but we'll save that for later. In first place, I do have the Ravens. The Ravens roster is just so insanely good. Lamar and Derrick Henry should not be allowed to be in the same backfield together, and Derrick Henry just keeps defying the odds of what running backs are supposed to do when they turn 30. I don't really care that much for the Ravens receiving weapons, but it really doesn't even matter when you have a quarterback like Lamar, because he makes everybody around him better. Zay Flowers was pretty good last season. I'm not as much on the hype train for Zay Flowers as everybody else, but they got DeAndre Hopkins. Is he going to do much? I don't know. I like Isaiah Likely. I like Mark Andrews. They have good tight ends. But this defense is also insane. I think they had one of the best sleeper picks in the draft in Mike Green. I know he had the off-field issue, so he fell to the second round. But the Ravens are great at just drafting the best player off the board consistently, regardless of the pick. Same reason they went out and got Malachi Starks in the first round, who I think is also going to be a great rookie. They got Jair Alexander in free agency. He's probably not going to stay healthy. He really struggles with doing so. But those games where he is healthy, that's just going to add another level to this Ravens defense. And I think they're just going to dominate in the regular season. Again, the question is really just going to be if they can finally find that playoff success. Second in the division, I have Cincinnati. I do think we see Cincinnati back in the playoffs this year. They probably get 10 or 11 wins, but I don't think it's going to be much different than last year. I think Joe Burrow is going to have a lot on his plate. He's going to be having to throw for almost 300 yards every game if they want to compete, because the defense didn't get much better. They used their first round pick on Shamar Stewart, and then of course had issues with his contract, because that's just what Cincinnati does. But is drafting Shamar Stewart really going to change much for this team? I really don't think so. I'm glad that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins got paid, but I didn't see enough change with this defense for my mind to be changed whatsoever. But I do think that the Bengals offense will do enough to find themselves back in the playoffs, and the Bengals games are going to be fun to watch this year. That's all I got to say. Third in the division, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think we see them go 9-8 once again. I think even if Mason Rudolph was thrown out there for the Steelers this season, I think they would have gotten 9 wins. I really don't think Aaron Rodgers changes much. Obviously, I think he's going to perform better than Mason Rudolph would. And the Steelers probably have one of the most stacked defenses in the league between TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, who was an all-pro last year. They got Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay. Like, this defense is going to be insanely good this year, but we're so used to the Steelers defense being insanely good. Their offense is always boring, and their offensive coordinator is still Arthur Smith. Let's not forget that. I don't know how Arthur Smith is still getting jobs as an offensive coordinator. That guy actually pisses me off. But Aaron Rodgers always has, like, debacles and problems with his coach ever since LaFleur. He didn't like LaFleur. He didn't like Robert Saleh. He brought in Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett also sucks. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Arthur Smith because Arthur Smith doesn't know how to run an offense. Aaron Rodgers is going to get pissy about it. And they're going to butt heads, and it's just not going to work out. I'm excited to watch Aaron Rodgers and DK, but outside of DK, the receiving core is thin. Jalen Warren getting to be the #1 back is going to be cool. I think he puts up decent numbers. I think the Steelers could possibly sneak into the playoffs, but I'm not excited to watch Steelers games. I'm sorry. I love Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think he has it in him anymore. That's all. I'm sorry. I don't think he's going to be capable of bouncing back from the Achilles tear like people want him to. He put up okay numbers in New York. I don't know. I want to get off this topic. I could yap about this all day. And in last place in the division, I have the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have good talent on the team. They have Denzel Ward. They have Myles Garrett. They have Jerry Jeudy, who put up great numbers last year, but they're throwing Joe Flacco out there week 1, which I do think is the right decision. But I think we see at least 3 quarterbacks play for them this year. I think Shador probably starts a game or 2. I think we probably see Dylan Gabriel a couple games. And this team, I don't know. They probably fire Kevin Stefanski after the year. I think they're going to struggle. I don't think this team's going to be very good. There's really not too much to get into. Maybe they'll have a good draft pick next year. Maybe they can start working on things. They will have 2 first-round picks next year as well. And I do like the draft pick of Mason Graham. But, I mean, if anybody out there thinks the Browns going to be good, let me know. I actually thought they were going to be good last year, and they were not. So, moving on to the AFC East. First place, I have the Bills. I think the Bills easily win this division this year. They probably get 12-plus wins. Josh Allen coming off his MVP season. I do want to see one of these receivers finally kind of break out into like a true wide receiver 1. I hope that it's Keon Coleman. I hope it's somebody. I'm just excited to see who it's going to be. But even if they don't find that wide receiver 1, Josh Allen's going to put up great numbers. They're going to have a great offense. They got Joey Bosa. That doesn't really like affect how I feel about their defense. Joey Bosa has kind of not put up the greatest numbers the last few seasons. He's always struggling with injuries. Their rookie corner they took in the first round is already struggling with injuries. So the defense is always well coached and it'll always be good enough, but the offense is always going to be high powered enough when you have a guy like Josh Allen that they're just going to win games. They're going to find a way to win games. And James Cook just got paid. He got 16 touchdowns last year. You're not going to be able to stop the Bills offense, and the Bills defense will do a good enough job of stopping whatever you're going to do. I know that sounds pretty brain dead, but that's what I'm thinking. Second place, I have Miami. I'm done being excited about the Dolphins. I kind of hopped ship on that last year. They probably win a few games to get the season started, and the same shit happens. I mean, they're probably just going to lose a bunch of games to end the season. I don't see how they're going to compete with the Bills. I don't see how they're going to win against good teams. I'm not a big fan of Mike McDaniel. I think whenever we saw the high-powered Miami Dolphins offense, the year they dropped 70 on the Broncos, everybody was so hype on this guy, but I just don't see it. I'm sorry, I don't see it. And I mean, the defense is okay. I like some of their pass rushers. I don't know if Jalen Phillips will be back at the beginning of the season. I don't know about Bradley Chubb. I like Chop Robinson. Their secondary's ass. I don't know. Minka came back to Miami. I just really don't know what to think about this team. The offense will probably be pretty good once again this year. Devon Achane is probably one of the top 5 to 10 running backs in the league. They still have a great receiving core with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but Tyreek Hill last year dealing with what he was dealing with kind of took a step back. I think this is probably one of the worst years we see out of the Dolphins. As of recently, they probably get 7 wins is going to be my guess. In third place, I actually have the New England Patriots. I think a lot of people are super hyped on the New England Patriots this year, and I'm very excited to see if Drake May can take that next step, which I actually do think he will, but I still don't think this is a good enough roster just yet to, get more than 6, 7. Didn't mean to say that, if I'm being honest. To get more than 7 wins, which is probably about what their ceiling is in my head. I'm very excited for this Patriots defense. I'm excited to watch what Harold Landry can do with Mike Vrabel. They got Milton Williams. They got Carlton Davis. They made a few pretty cool signings. They had a Stephon Diggs to the receiving core, but honestly, the receiving core is still, outside of Stephon Diggs, their receivers are ass. Let's just put it like that. I like the Will Campbell draft pick a lot. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And I do think Drake May takes a pretty big step this year, especially with Mike Vrabel as a new head coach of the Patriots. I think we will watch a lot better football out of them, but it's going to take a couple more years before the Patriots start becoming a threat to the Bills in this division. And then last place, I sadly do have the New York Jets. I'm a big fan of Justin Fields, but I just don't, as much as I want him to succeed, I don't think it's going to work out. He's kind of just yet to prove that he's capable of making the right reads, that he's capable of reading defenses. I think Justin Fields is an insane athlete, and it kind of hurts me to say this, but I think the best career path for Justin Fields at this point is going to be becoming kind of like a Marcus Mariota type guy, like what he used to do in Las Vegas, where he could be the backup quarterback and you can put him and you can put him in on 4th and 1 for an RPO, and he'll pick up a yard for you on the ground. But outside of that, I just don't see how this Jets offense is going to succeed with Justin Fields as their quarterback and Aaron Glenn as the head coach. I mean, that's cool. I like Aaron Glenn, but the Lions defense is kind of what held them back last year. I know that they dealt with a lot of injuries, but the Lions defense wasn't so insanely impressive last year that I don't see why they were so excited to get Aaron Glenn as the head coach of all people. I do think the Jets defense will be great this year, but I think Justin Fields struggles a lot, and by the end of the year, he's going to be done with New York. Moving on to the AFC South, this might be the worst division in the league. I don't know. I think the Texans win it again. I think we're kind of going to recognize the same pattern we had the last 2 years where the Texans play pretty good and the other teams play pretty bad, and they win the division pretty easily. They're probably going to find a way to win a playoff game, and then they're going to lose to the Chiefs in the divisional round. But I think the Texans probably get about 10 wins. I'm very excited to watch Nick Chubb in his potential running back 1 role with Joe Mixon being out for the beginning half of the season or probably more. And the Texans defense is always scary. Them losing Laramie Tunsil is just really what confuses me. I get they got a lot out of the Laramie Tunsil trade. They got good picks. But this was one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. I think it was a big reason CJ Stroud struggled. All eyes were on CJ Stroud. All eyes were on, sophomore slump. When you look at the numbers, CJ Stroud was getting sacked an insane amount of times, and really the only problem Laramie Tunsil has was jumping early and getting false starts. But it's like you have a great left tackle and then a shitty rest of the offensive line, and then you ship off the good offensive linemen you have. Now, obviously, they've made a couple of changes. It's hard for me to see how CJ Stroud is going to be as efficient as he was his rookie year with the offensive line play that they're probably going to continue to have. I like the depth they have at receivers, and I really like the defense, but I don't think this offense is going to be very exciting. Second in the division, I have the Jags. I do think the Jags will kind of make a push to find a wild card spot this year, and I really like the head coach signing in Liam Cohen. I think he's going to be the first guy to really start developing Trevor Lawrence into who we thought he was going to be. I think Travis Hunter will be okay. I think if they really are telling the truth about trying to find a way to play him on both sides of the ball, it's just going to be too much. I think while he's a rookie right now, it's best to just put him on one side of the ball, let him ball out on offense, let him ball out on defense, whichever one it may be, and then as he starts learning the system and proving himself as one of the top guys at that position in the league, then start rotating him in to offense or defense. I hope he does great on both sides of the ball. Don't get me wrong. I think that's too much to ask out of a rookie. I'm just going to be honest. Their running game, never very good. Tank Bigsby is pretty good. Travis Etienne sucks. Like, I'm actually so sick of watching Travis Etienne get handed the ball. The defense is all right. Josh Hines-Allen is pretty good. Trayvon Walker has continued to improve every year. But the secondary's ass. I don't know. I think they get maybe 9 wins, but I don't think that's going to be enough for them to get a wild card spot in the AFC. Third place, I have the Colts. The Colts are interesting, man. Daniel Jones going to be starting week 1. My opinion on that is I think Daniel Jones will probably win them a couple more games than Anthony Richardson would have this year. But when you drafted Anthony Richardson at 4th overall, how many games had he even played? He had like 20 total career games played through college or something, maybe even less. Y'all knew that was going to be a guy that you were going to have to develop. It was going to take a couple years for him to find it. His rookie year, he played okay and then got hurt. And last year, he had all these crazy expectations before he came back. And yeah, he played terrible. He lowest completion percentage in the league, tapped out on that one play, which I think people cared a little bit too much about, if I'm being honest. But you know what you're going to get out of Daniel Jones. Anthony Richardson at least has the upside of being able to develop and take a next step, at least throw him out there and see if he does, because I mean, what's really the difference between going like 4-13 and going 6-11, you know? We know what Daniel Jones is. He can put up numbers sometimes. He's probably not going to. There are a lot of weapons on the Colts offense that I think Daniel Jones could make some things work, but I don't know. I like the Colts free agency when it comes to like the secondary. They got Trevarius Ward. They got Cam Bynum. They might have just recently signed someone as well. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but I don't know. They lost Will Fries. They lost Ryan Kelly. This team's not going to be very good, and they're not going to be fun to watch. I would love, though, to see Daniel Jones have like a Sam Darnold year and just come out and ball out and prove everyone wrong. That would be sick. Do I think it's going to be the case? Probably not. And then last, I actually do have Tennessee. I'm very excited. It's hard for me to determine what's really going to happen with Cam Ward because we haven't seen him play in the NFL yet. It kind of reminds me back to when Houston drafted CJ Stroud. The roster wasn't very good. Everybody thought they were one of the worst teams in the league, and CJ Stroud came out and proved that he was that guy. He balled out even with a roster that beforehand we didn't think was very good. I know they also got Will Anderson that year. But this Titans roster is not very good. I don't like Tony Pollard. He's not a very good running back. Calvin Ridley's all right. We brought in Tyler Lockett as the wide receiver too. I don't really know. I like their offensive line. Their offensive line is pretty young, and I think will continue to get better. I don't know. Justin Simmons is pretty good. L'Jarius Sneed didn't do very good in his first year there last season. I don't really see how this team gets more than 4 wins. I don't think Cam Ward's going to be bad necessarily, but he's not going to be enough to carry what the Titans roster is into being like an actual good team. And moving on to the final division, we have the AFC West. I do think the Chiefs win the division once again. Marquise Brown's going to be healthy again. I'm excited to watch him. Xavier Worthy proved himself a lot last year. We're going to get to watch him in his sophomore year probably break out and take another step. Travis Kelce just got engaged to Taylor Swift. You know that he's going to be balling out a little extra hard. And I mean, do I really even need to get into why the Chiefs are going to win the division? They're the Kansas City Chiefs. They've made the AFC Championship 7 years in a row. They have Andy Reid. They have Patrick Mahomes. They're going to win the division. Second place, I think the Chargers probably finished second in the division this year. I think Jim Harbaugh kind of proved that he just makes NFL teams better. I really just want to see Justin Herbert finally take the leap and become one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, because I'm so sick of these what ifs or Justin Herbert just kind of getting overhyped. I'm not the biggest Herbert guy. I think he does have the capabilities to be like a top 10 quarterback in the league, but as of right now, I'm not convinced that he is. They did draft Omarion Hampton. They also got Najee Harris in free agency, so I think they're going to continue to run the ball efficiently like they did last year. They brought Keenan Allen back. I think that'll be good for Justin Herbert, have a guy that he's familiar with, and Ladd McConkey put up great numbers last year. So I do have faith that Justin Herbert can finally put up numbers that we thought he was going to be putting up after his rookie season. Honestly, his numbers aren't even the problem. It's just winning that's the problem. I don't want to dive too deep into it. I think Herbert is a great quarterback, but I think people just expect so much more out of a guy that already has proven that he's not really capable of doing the things that people want him to. I mean, the Chargers defense was great last year. I think they'll be pretty good again. When you have Jim Harbaugh as a coach, your defense is probably going to be good. I don't know. The takes are getting more and more casual as we go on through the video, but that's just how this channel works sometimes. Third in the division, I have the Broncos. The Broncos really remind me of the Texans last season. Bo Nix came out and balled last year and completely destroyed everyone's expectations. He played fantastic. And then they go out, they sign Evan Ingram. They brought in J.K. Dobbins. On defense, they bring in Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, who I think unfortunately is already dealing with injury issues. They drafted Jahdae Barron to come and play alongside the Defensive Player of the Year last year in Pat Surtain. So I think everybody is so confident that the Broncos are going to be so good this year. But I feel like the scheme of the offense last year wasn't insane. I feel like they made Bo Nix's life pretty easy, and obviously they're capable of doing that again. I think the Broncos could probably find themselves in a wild card spot this year, but I'm not as insanely confident and like positive that the Broncos are going to be in the playoffs and putting up 10 plus wins this season. I honestly don't even know if I have them making the playoffs. I hope they do. I actually really like J.K. Dobbins. He's probably one of my favorite running backs in the league, and I'm very excited. I hope the team lives up to the expectations that everybody's saying it's going to, because that would be some insanely fun football to watch, but I'm not as insanely confident as everybody else. And then in last place, I have the Raiders. The Raiders are one of the most interesting teams this year. I really like Geno Smith. I think he's going to be a great fit in Las Vegas. Ashton Jeanty is going to probably ball out and put up great numbers, but the receiving core is kind of thin. Jacoby Myers also just requested a trade. On their defense, you have Max Crosby, and then what else? I mean, they got Jeremy Chin this year. They cut Christian Wilkins for like kissing a teammate on the head or something. I don't know. Oh, I also forgot to mention Brock Bowers, who just balled out as a rookie last year. Like, I like the weapons they have on the offense, but I'm not confident it's going to be an insane offense. Their offensive line doesn't really impress me, and their defense is kind of ass. And I mean, Pete Carroll, legendary head coach, does he still have it in him? Who knows? I would love to see a world where Geno Smith and Pete Carroll go out and just ball and make the playoffs or something. That'd be sick. Probably not going to be the case, though. We're finally done with all the division predictions, so we can go ahead and hop into my playoff teams. If I'm being honest, I wish I was more creative, because unfortunately in the NFC, I believe I have all the same exact teams that made the playoffs last year. I think the Eagles probably get the 1 seed. The Eagles are just going to dominate the regular season with the roster they have. There's no doubt in my mind. I think the Lions probably get the 2 seed. The Lions are proving over the last couple years that this isn't just like a fluke. They are that team. They are incredibly high powered, and they can put up 50 on you if they want to. Third, I have the Bucks. Like I said, I think the Bucks will actually pretty comfortably win the division this year with about 11 wins. Fourth, I have the Rams. I think they're going to take that division. And then for the wild card teams, I have the Packers as the 5 seed, the Commanders as the 6 seed, and the Vikings as the 7th seed. Now, if I had to change anything about the NFC playoff teams, there's maybe a way San Fran sneaks in there. Maybe there's a world where Chicago or Seattle sneaks in there. Those would really only be the 3 teams out of the NFC I would expect to maybe jump above one of these teams in the NFC. AFC, the 1 seed, I have the Ravens. The Ravens have proved that they can dominate the regular season every year, so there's no doubt in my mind they'll continue to do so. Second, I have the Bills. I think the Bills division is going to be pretty easy this year, so I think they'll pretty easily have a high seed in the AFC. The 3 seed, I have the Chiefs, and the 4 seed, I have the Texans, which I want to say is the same exact division winners as last year, but I don't know. The division winners I feel like aren't that whatever. And then for the wild card teams, I think the Bengals are going to get the 5 seed. I think the Chargers grab the 6th seed. And I actually originally had the Steelers grabbing the 7th seed, but I really did think about it. I think the Broncos do find their way back into the playoffs as the 7th seed once again. And that's only one team that I have different in the AFC playoffs. Like, I wish I could be more creative, but I'm not. I'm sorry. Like, I just have faith in the teams that prove themselves, I guess. Like, I just don't really see. We'll go ahead and hop into the championship games predictions. Starting off in the NFC, I think our NFC Championship game will be the Eagles versus the Packers. I don't think we need to talk too much about the Eagles. The Eagles probably have the best roster in the NFL. And I think the Packers, I think we see Jordan Love take a big step this year. I think Matthew Golden's going to be one of the best rookies that was drafted this year. And they literally just got Micah Parsons. Like, their defense was good last year, and then they added Micah Parsons. They have Josh Jacobs. This team is nasty. I'm so excited to watch the Packers this year. Even though, you know, I'm supposed to hate them, I just love their roster. I can't lie. And I wanted to be biased and put Packers-Vikings as the NFC Championship, but I just don't see a world where the Eagles don't find their way back to the championship game. AFC Championship, you know what? The Chiefs may have made 7 AFC championships in a row, so you might be like, yo, why are you not predicting the Chiefs to make the AFC championship? Because that's lame, okay? I have the Ravens and the Bengals both making the AFC championship this year, and so I think we're going to have a Packers-Ravens Super Bowl, which I think the Ravens are going to take. I think Lamar finally goes out and gets a ring. I think he finally proves that he can win in the regular season, and honestly, nothing would make me happier. I think Lamar Jackson is almost unarguably the most talented quarterback we have in the NFL right now, but he just hasn't shown that he could find that playoff success. I hope he finds it this year. I hope he goes and get a ring. And I hope I don't have to watch the Packers win a Super Bowl before I get to watch the Vikings win one. I know the Packers have won a Super Bowl in my lifetime, but I wasn't watching it. Now we'll go ahead and hop into the awards for this year. For MVP, I have a co-split. And do I actually think they're going to co-split the MVP? No, but it gives me an excuse to take 2 guesses. So I think they're going to co-split it between Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield. I think they're both going to have very similar seasons where they are expected to throw for 300 yards and 3 tuds every game. I think it's more likely to go to Joe Burrow because he doesn't have as good of a running back to fall back on like the Bucs do in Bucky Irving. And on top of that, I feel like the NFL is just like fiending to give Joe Burrow an MVP finally. And he put up the numbers to get it last year, and he was in the conversation as a 9-8 team that didn't make the playoffs. So if he can put up the same numbers and get 11 wins and make the playoffs, how are they not going to give it to Joe Burrow? Offensive Player of the Year, I actually have it going to a player on a team that's not even going to make the playoffs in my prediction. I think it's going to go to CeeDee Lamb. I think the Cowboys offense is going to be expected to put up numbers every single game, and I think Dak is going to be consistently looking at CeeDee Lamb. Now, I know they added George Pickens, but I think that's only going to make CeeDee Lamb's life easier having another weapon on the field for other teams to look at. And on top of that, I don't really believe in Dallas's defense. So it's almost similar to what I was saying about Cincinnati and Tampa, where I think the Cowboys offense is going to be asked to do a lot, and they basically don't have a run game to fall back on. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to put up insane numbers and go get the Offensive Player of the Year this year. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm actually going to give to Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons has been so insanely consistent these first 4 years. He struggled with some injuries last year. I think he only missed like 4 games or so. But I just think he's going to come out with something to prove. He's going to want to prove Jerry wrong and show what they were missing out on. Green Bay brought him there for a reason, and having somebody like Micah is just so valuable to the defense. And honestly, I want nothing more than to see Micah like stick it up Jerry's ass and go win Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm going to give it to Micah this year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I have another Packers player. I think it's going to go to Matthew Golden. Now you could say, why not Ashton Jeanty? Why not a quarterback? Matthew Golden is drafted to the Packers, who have, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback with no really true set wide receiver one. Jaden Reed had some decent games last year, but he also had some games where I think he literally had a game where he got 0 receptions against the Lions. Christian Watson can put up numbers, but he struggles with injuries and hasn't proved himself as a one. I think Matthew Golden is going to establish himself as the wide receiver one in Green Bay and win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think Ashton Jeanty will put up great numbers, but he's not on as good of a team. I don't think he's going to be in the best position to put up the numbers that I think Matthew Golden will. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going to give to Mike Green. Now, I know he has the off-the-field issues, but the Ravens just know how to draft, man, and Mike Green was arguably a round 1 talent. The Ravens took him in the 2nd round. He's going to be a starting pass rusher for a team that doesn't have any super big-name crazy pass rushers. I think he's going to put up great numbers. I think he could get double-digit sacks on a team that's going to have probably 13-plus wins, and I think he's going to find himself as a Defensive Rookie of the year. And then coach of the year, I think I'm going to give to Nick Sirianni. I think if Nick Sirianni takes the Eagles to a 1 seed and has another great regular season, I feel like it's going to be hard not to give it to Nick Sirianni at this point. I don't know. Coach of the year is really hard to predict because they also like to give it to teams that like kind of sucked the year before and then bounce back the year after. So I don't really know. Let me think of some hot takes I might got for this year. I think the only dark horses I have for this season would maybe be a team like Atlanta. I was talking about, I have a lot of faith in their offense, but I just can't really confidently say their defense is going to be very good. If their defense could find out how to be good, Atlanta could actually be a very scary team. So I guess they're one of my dark horse candidates. And then if I had to pick one for the AFC, honestly, even though I just said what I said, I'm going to take my dark horse as the Raiders in the AFC. Now, obviously, I'm picking teams that I didn't predict to do very good, but it wouldn't be a dark horse if I predicted them to do good, you know? I think if Geno and Pete Carroll click, Ashton Jeanty lives up to expectations, Brock Bowers repeats what he did last year, Max Crosby continues to ball out on the defensive line, that could be a pretty nasty team. That's going to be it for this video. If you think I'm a casual, feel free to let me know in the comments. This video was kind of rushed, so I might not have had like the best details thrown into everything, but the NFL season is starting in like 4 days, so I had to get the video pumped out. If you enjoyed, please make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. We are still doing the giveaway. I know I don't upload much, but if we hit 1,000 subs, I still owe one of you guys a jersey, so to enter that, make sure you're sub to the channel, take a screenshot and send it to me on Instagram. It'll be at the top of the screen right now. I'll also leave a link in the description. But if I get a DM on Instagram of you being one of the first 1,000 subs to the channel, you'll be entered into a giveaway for a free NFL jersey. So, hey, fuck it, why not? You never know, you could win. But thanks for watching. I love you guys. That's going to be all for this one. Deuces.